Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Kitchen time. This is effectively part two. We had a look at selecting some plants for repots. We had a look and a chat about why they were selected. We got them out of their pots, we had a look at the root systems. Some plants got split and the reasons why they got split and the reasons why they got split in particular places. So we did all that in part one. They've then been rinsed under the tap to get the last bits of dirt and old media out where possible. A tiny bit of root trimming was done in addition to what we did in part one, and I mean a tiny little bit. So not much root trimming at all, as in the main they didn't have bad roots. And what we've got here, we've got some sponge rock, giant perlite. We've got some of the bark that I got from Burnham's, which is classed as medium. If this was Orchiata, that would be somewhere between medium and small, probably closer to small. Nonetheless, it's the media that Burnham's use almost all the time. So we're going to have some of that. I found some Orchiata chunky, but why this was put separate in this bag I don't know. I think it top dressed some plants for a show and I didn't want to waste it. So we have got some crocking bark. And also I brought out some chunks of lava rock, which are handy to put in the bottom of small pots that are going to have large plants in to help keep them upright. That's the theory anyway. I've got some stakes, small stakes, and some raffia to tie, some tape in case I want to tape the stake to the outside of the pot, which I may well need to do. I've got some charcoal and several scissors and a selection of pots. Yeah. So again, because I believe pot size is quite important to Oncidium types to help generate good root systems, we'll have a look at the plants and then decide what pot they're going to go in. These are just ordinary pots of various shapes and sizes, most with air cones, not all. This is the next size down, which is about as small as I dare go for the size plants we've got. Who knows? There's a little flat one. Had another plant in it that I bought. Very rare, very rare. I'll keep that one separate to remind me I've got it. That's just another one of them. And then I've got these that I bought some time ago and I've forgotten about. They look a little large for what we're doing today, but they're opaque. So they don't need to go inside a black pot to keep the light out. They're handy. And then these, which probably won't be able to be got again, they came from Peter White and they're a wide, shallow pot with a lot of air. They're quite handy as well for plants that spread but don't have deep roots. So quite an assortment there. We'll do them a plant at a time. Let's get going. This is where we get the coffee out of the way. Right, first one isn't one. It ended up being three. It was two in the last video. While I was washing it, it became three. And this is the Miltonia spectabilis. And I've ended up with that piece with a single new growth. Possibility of a second one, but probably only the one. And we've got another piece here, a climber. Again, the single new growth, so that's two. And then we ended up with this one, which at the moment has got no new growth, but there is an embryo growth there. So each of these has the potential for a new growth, but look at that. It's gone vertical, that rhizome. So, you know, this is not going to be easy to pot. And because these need to lie relatively flat, and they're not deep rooted, they're a very, very branching root system that forms quite a heavy mass of roots at the base of the plant, sort of slightly spreading outwards. I think I may go for one of these and try and get them all in a single pot. This is the wide flat sort. So we will try and get them in there. There's no way they're going to stand up on their own. They will need staking. And when you try and put three plants in a pot, trying to hold them while you do the stakes is not easy. Not easy at all. Right, so we will put some crocking in the bottom of that. I don't want too much because it's already a shallow pot, so we won't go mad, but we'll just have some in the bottom. And I'm going to have 3 tall plants in here, so I'm going to put some rocks in the bottom. Makes it even shallower, and I'm going to wiggle those down into the crocking so that they don't stick up too much. Might have been better to put them in first. Oh, hello pussycat. Right, so that's what they're going in. Now what are they going to get planted in? So we'll start with our basic bark. And this is it's because I'm so used to the Orchiata, I've had it for so long, this just looks, well, let's just say different. But as I said, Sarah at Burnham says, you know, they've had no problems with it. Seems to last reasonably well, and the roots take to it. That's the main thing. You know, it's all very well saying, oh, this medium lasts for ages, but if the roots don't like it, it's not a lot of good, is it, really? So there's some bark, we'll have a handful of charcoal. These are all going in the same stuff, basically. So, you know, just mix some, and then when it's gone, we'll mix some more. And we will have some perlite. Sponge rock. This helps with drainage, aeration, and in this particular case it does hold some water apparently, so it does lots of things, so it sounds like something that's well worth adding. The dust that you can see has come off of the perlite, and don't worry, it's not coming up in the air, and it will rinse straight out of the pot when I water these, which I will have to do, so it's not there for long. It will be straight down the sink. Right, so that's our mix. Now the fun begins. Trying to get 3 plants in a pot in a shallow mix. It's about as bad as it gets. Right, positioning. Well, it's easy to miss media out. See, I've got a back bulb here, followed by a high growth, and that's where my new growth's going to be. So I need that towards the edge, towards the middle of the pot. The old bulb doesn't matter if it gets buried a bit. So I'm happy with that one there, new growth here. So that's one. It won't stay there, so I'll just have to remember where it goes. And then this one, again, our new growths, probably 2 here, but not necessarily, may only be 1. The oldest bulb is coming off. It's too low. And that also means I'm going to have to cut the rhizome, so hang on. And these were sterile when they were put away, so that gets rid of that chunk of rhizome, because it's not required. There we go, decision made. Now we're back to something that will plant flat now, and that bulb is storage for this part of the plant, so I have just taken away some of its energy, but it hasn't got bad roots, it will take, so that can go there. Notice I'm putting the old bulbs on the outside of the pot, because if I'm going to have to take stakes to the outside of the pot, I want them to grab hold of the old bulbs, not the new ones. Again, we've got a climber here, but not too bad. So you can go there. Right, now I've probably got these a bit low in the pot, but that doesn't matter, because once I've got some media in round the roots, I can just lift them up. You know, it's better to have them too low than too high. If they're too high in the pot, you won't get them down. Whereas if they're too low, you can always lift them up. So I'd rather bury them and then lift them up later once I've got some media to hold them in place. That's my theory. Now these roots are relatively thin, but they're actually quite sturdy, so I haven't got to worry too much about pushing down. washing down I'm doing now is filling gaps rather than squashing, if you see what I mean. It's just making sure I haven't got too many gaps in around the base. And they've got something decent to get into, and lo and behold, they're standing up on their own. Yay! And they are going to stay there as well, I think. Let's use most of that media. So I've got a gap in between two bulbs there, one of which has got a new growth right next to it, so we make sure we haven't got a gap there, because that's where new roots are going to be. Right, all the new growths are towards the middle of the pot. That's where the new roots will come out, and because they're coming out in the middle of the pot, they've got a lot to get into before they reach the edge of the pot, so that will work well. And the plant is pretty stable, so I'm not going to bother staking that one. That's one done, and that was the Spectaculis. So 3 plants in one pot there. I don't do that often, but I'm thinking of my workload here, you know, watering 1 pot or water 3 pots. You're going to get the same number of flower spikes either way, and they'll probably look very good if they all come up in 1 pot. So chances are we'll get 3 or 4 flower spikes in one go. Right, next one. Different root system this time. This is the intergeneric. It was just labelled Cambria. We already have our new roots here, and it may be that we've already had our flush of new roots and we're not going to get any more. So these have got to be taken care of, not too much pressing down and squashing on these. I need to keep them as they are, intact. Chances are there may be some more roots to come, because the roots are coming. Let's see if I can show you. If you follow these roots back, they're actually coming from here, not coming from here. So it may be that these new growths have still yet to produce their roots. If that's true, that is absolutely superb. That would be the best possible set of circumstances. Right, next thing. A smaller pot, can I get that in? Yep, that'll do. Right, so chuck some big bits in the bottom. Do I want a rock in the bottom? Yeah, why not? I've got the idea in my head now that a bit of stabilisation in the bottom can never do any harm, can it? It all helps. Right, so that's that. Let's get some mix done. I might be able to get 2 more, and then I'll have to break off and go and get some more of the bark from Sarah. And this is the last of the old charcoal that I had to wash because it was just a bag of dust basically. So when this is gone, I'll be using Sarah's charcoal as well. This is getting very fine now. It's not dust, but it's not far off it. In fact, I don't think I'll use any more of that. It's too fine. It's going to end up washing down through the media and coming out the bottom of the pot. It will just gradually work its way down there. I'd like to get some bigger pieces, but it seems to go from this sort of horticultural grade, which is quite small, up to huge big chunks that you chuck on your barbecue, which would then need some work done to it, obviously, to get it usable for plants. Unless you were using like an open basket. If you were planting something like a Cattleya in an open basket, those giant chunks of charcoal would be brilliant. Or combine them with some lava rock. Yeah, you'd have a good basis for something to get its roots onto and hang on. So I always think of Cattleyas as not getting into media, as getting on it, because they like to grab hold of every little piece possible. Right, I'm going to have to twist this round. I'm hoping not to have to stake this one as well. Just twist the roots slightly and it pulls them back from the very edge of the pot. And I've got 3 new growths, and I'd like 3 more new growths before this needs repotting again. So again, back there. To get it back there, the first job is to get media round the back of the plant. Then I won't need to go round there again. Just get some in round the back. Then we come back round the front and push the whole plant back against what you've just pushed in. Now you've got your plant in a nice position to have the 3 new growths near the middle of the pot, ready to produce their new roots if they're going to. I think they may well do that, because it's not really a heavy sign of new roots under those new growths, so I think they're still to come. And hence the variety on the Oncidium types. Some produce their new roots as the growths are quite small, and others virtually mature those growths before the new roots come. Same with Cattleyas. It's probably similar to most orchids. They vary. And it pays to know what your one does, because it can help you time a repot. So make notes. I mean, I make notes along the lines of new roots when pseudobulb semi-mature, or after they mature, or new roots with new growths, which means they start together. Although I'm realising as time goes on, there's not so many do that. Right, it's nice and tight in the pot. It's sat quite high in the pot, but we won't worry too much about that, because if the new roots come out, they are sitting on the media. They'll go straight in. This one's slightly lower, and these two are just right. So that's that one, and that was the intergeneric no ID thing, Cambria. House plant. Right, that's that one. I might just about be able to do one more before I need to go and get some more bark, depending on what we do. Actually, I'll break off because I need to get one of Sarah's bags of charcoal so that we can see what that's like, and I need some more of the new bark. Right, where was I? A bit more sponge drop. And Sarah's charcoal has a resealable bag. And look, I can't see any dust at the moment. You'll soon see once I get some out. It just looks like nice bark. It's in reasonable sized pieces. In the main a bit bigger than the stuff I had before, which is better. I'd rather it was like that. And it still gets your fingers dirty, but it's got a resealable bag. Well, it will have when I get it to work. I'll fiddle with that later. It's one of those zip things that where you have to get it started, and then it just runs across and seals. I should stop it going all over the place. Where's my towel bar? See, there's always one around somewhere. Right. That's that. Yeah, I like the look of that charcoal. It was cheaper than the stuff I got online as per bag, and the bag is full of charcoal, not dust, so it's actually much better value for money. Might not be so if I had to pay for the postage though, but I happen to be there, so you know, obviously no postage. Right, this is the Bialara, and this is the one. See, again, you've got a new growth pushing on quite well here. It's not matured yet, but it's pushing on pretty good, and the new roots are just coming. Yeah, so they're just starting. Those are fragile, those will break very easily. The rest of the roots are pretty good, and it's a branching root system. So just a quick observation. And this is a 3-bulb plant. All 3 bulbs are at the same height. I'm going to get this in the smallest pot I dare without breaking roots. If it would go in that little flat one. No. It's only got one new growth on here, so the pot only needs to accommodate that one new growth. Yeah, I'm going to try it in one of these opaque ones. It's not a huge amount of air in the bottom of these, but this one is going to get planted deep. Remember what I said about it's also a tall plant, so we'll put some rocks in. If you want to turn a deep pot into a shallow pot, either put a lot of crocking in and bring the media higher up, or plant the plant lower down in the pot so that you've got, like, you know, a good inch or more clearance from the top of the media. Doesn't do the plant any harm at all, but it means you've got a shallow pot without having a shallow pot, if you see what I mean. Right, gently, gently with this one. The older roots are probably not too bad, but I would suggest they would break quite easily. And again, I want the back of the plant near the edge of the pot, so we'll get our media in there first, and we can push back against it. Gently, gently. I do not want to damage those new roots. I'm putting the media down the edge, so I'm right near the edge of the pot. That's not where the new roots are. Yeah? That means I can wiggle in it and it will gradually work its way into the gaps without me pushing it there. It sort of does it on its own. Very gentle here. This is where the new roots are. In fact, I'm going to tap it down. No pushing at all. Just let it work its own way in. And then all I've got to do is push down around the outside. There's no new roots there, and that will help secure the plant and give it one final little push in towards the middle without me actually pushing down anywhere near those new roots. And I won't know whether I've broken any because I can't see them because they're in the middle of the pot, which is where I want them. Right, there we go, that's that one done. Are you secure? Yep, good stuff. We're doing okay, no stakes so far. So all this paraphernalia over here wasn't necessary, was it? Well, you never know. I mean, I've had quite small plants that need staking. You know, when you think it's the big ones that need staking because they'll wobble around. Well, sometimes it's the big ones that go in nice and tight. And it's the smaller ones that don't. Right, so now we've got two. We've got two left. And these are the ones with the maximum number of new growths. And this is the possible Morelliana, although it may be a hybrid. But whatever it is, it grows well, it's a big plant, and it has very good flower spikes. Now I've got a plant here with 3 new growths. That's a pot. If I try and get this one in, I'll have 5 growths, which is potentially 5 flower spikes all at once. That's quite a spectacle. But this plant would be difficult to get in one pot and still allow room for those to grow. Let me have a look. If I can do it, I will, because of the show that it will put on. If I pot it like that, then I've got new growth, new growth, new growth, new growth, new growth, all around the outside of the plant. But it's going to have to go in a wide pot to allow those growths room for expansion and the next new growth without going over the edge of the blinking pot. So a shallow wide one. So we'll have one of these, shallow and wide. And we won't have much crocking. We got any more rocks left? One. I've got a big, huge bag of this somewhere, which I will now have to go and find. I think it's out in the hall where I keep the media, because I quite like this idea. You know, now that I've thought of it, I'm rummaging around looking for stuff today, and I came across that with those bits of lava rock in. But somewhere there's a huge bag, because that's all I could buy. And it was a big bag as well. Weighed an absolute ton. Right. Mix up another lot. Someone told me I shouldn't break these big bits up, but I think if you look at the surface area of a big bit and then look at the surface area of that piece broken into three, you've got much more surface area with the smaller pieces of it. The charcoal's warm. Lean it against the kettle. Perhaps we'll move it, eh? Right. So this will be a good test for the new charcoal and the new bark. And you'll see how well the roots take to the media they're in, how quickly they establish, and then on top of that, how long it lasts. Right, so I had this how I wanted it, didn't I? New growth, new growth, new growth. Slightly climbing new growth, and the final one round there. I quite like that. Get some media in. All of those new growths are going to produce a root mass individually, on top of what there already is on the plant. And with the back bulbs and the previous growths, the ones that bloomed for us, there's plenty of storage in these two pieces. So the new growths would push on even if there was no roots. For a while they would be sustainable via the nutrients and everything that's stored in the existing back bulbs or older bulbs. So they would last some time without any roots at all. So, you know, even if this had a really lousy root system, you know, like you get sometimes where they've rotted, in this case on this plant with this number of new growths, it wouldn't matter, because the plant would hopefully sustain itself. The problem you get is when the bad media and the rotten roots have already been there some time and you haven't done anything about it, because at that point the plant's probably drained all its resources and your pseudobulbs are already starting to shrivel. At that point it's running out. There's very little left to survive on, and you've disturbed what tiny little root system you had, and now it's got virtually no roots. The ones that it's got are probably damaged, if not rotten anyway, and you've got to wait for your new ones. Now that's the point at which a lot of Oncidium types are lost. Again, left too long before being dealt with. Now this could be an Oncidium type that doesn't produce roots until these new growths are almost mature. It won't matter. It's got storage and it's got some roots, so it'll survive okay. I'm not sure about whether this is secure enough, this one. It'll be an absolute bugger to try and stake. It's not that secure. So I'm just looking to see where I could stake it and how much of an improvement it would make. I think I'll end up wobbling it about so much trying to get a stake to work that it'd be better just leaving it and just go very careful when I pick it up to water it. I don't like it, it is actually wobbling quite a bit. A lot of that is because there's very little depth. Well, there's something we can do about that. We'll lift it. Remember I said it's easier to lift a plant than it is to sink it in. So let's lift it up. That'll get me another ½ an inch of media, and I still won't be at the top of the pot. That gives me more to press down. And that may be all it needs to make it secure. bit better. It's this one. This one will not stay still. Let's put some more bark around the top. This is just bark, so this will dry quickly. So this, I'm not going to bother pressing this down. This is just so that the new growths have got something around them, and it also makes it a bit higher in the pot and more stable. And now I'm just going to play games and just see if I can get some stakes to lean against the pseudo bulbs and stop them moving. I'm hoping not to have to tie these stakes. I'm just hoping that they will lean against the pseudo bulbs and hold them in against each other. They won't need to stay there too long. That one didn't do any good at all. I think it hit a rock. That's better. And if I can get one there to do that with that one, then that's got it. So there's no tying or anything, that's just positioning. I'm getting them to lean against the stake like that. That's better. That'll do. That'll do. And that was... Anywhere where these green labels are, I shall be doing new ones when I go and sit down, because I've now got to... in fact, I'll film it, so I won't even mention what I'm going to do next. Right, so that's that. Those are all potted now. We've been over why, the logic, the pot selection. The media is infinitely variable. Those could have gone just in that bark. Strictly speaking, they could have also just gone in the sponge rock, possibly even just in the charcoal. They could have had smaller pieces of lava rock mixed in there, an infinite mix there. Currently, I'm quite liking using bark, some sponge rock and some charcoal. The charcoal helps keep the media sweet. So even at the point where it starts to break down, the charcoal can just let it hang on that little bit longer. That's really what that's for. It absorbs impurities, that's why they use it in filters. It's in there, in my filter jug. That filter there has got charcoal in it. That's what it's used for. It's good at it. Right, so that's the repotting done. I'm now going to go and sit on the computer and film a little bit more. Something I haven't done before. But as we started off with the computer, we'll now go back and film a bit more. So there'll be a bit to add on. Okay, all I wanted to do really was just show what I do in my notes. So if we get back to the Spectabilis, obviously in the date repotted, we'll put today's date in. So that's done. And then they got watered. They get watered with my filter jug out in the kitchen when something's been repotted. It's the only time I would use that water, but I can't be bothered with messing about with the RO water at that time. So we just put that in there, and then if we go across a bit to the last column, which is notes basically here, all I put in there is, what's going on, and what's going on in this case with the Spectabilis was we repotted in sponge rock charcoal mix, 3 pieces in 1 pot, roots not too bad. So that's the sort of thing that I'd put in my notes. And basically, what I can now do is select those 3 cells and do a Control and C so that I've got them in the buffer now.
So the next one we did was the Morelliana. So I can just paste those 3 cells in now, which gives me my date, the fact that I've watered them. And all I've got to do is review these notes. Well, they were repotted in the same mix. There weren't 3 pieces in the pot this time, there were 2. So, and that's all I need to do. Yeah, because again, the roots weren't too bad. So that's that one. The other plants were down in the Oncidium set, weren't they? So we had the Memoria Donald Yamada. Notice the sections are blank. I always do that. When I pull plants out to do something in the kitchen, I blank them out in my notes, which reminds me to fill the notes in, and also make sure I do it, because there's a howling gap there where the plants were. So again, we can just paste those 3 in. Obviously the 3 pieces in one pot, that can just come out now. We don't need that. So we can just have roots not too bad. So that's that. And what I'll do now is control and see those 3, and they can go straight in the last one. Like that. That saves me updating the notes twice. Whoops. Sorry about that. What's going on here? What on earth is this stupid thing doing? Right, there we are. Sorry. What it is I use a mouse. But if I get clumsy and concentrate on the screen, I'm rubbing my hand over the pad, which starts doing things. And things I wasn't aware of, basically. Right, so that's just to show you that, the sort of thing that I would put in my notes. There's nothing else needs updating. And obviously the next time they come round for watering in the grow room, their watering column will get updated with whatever they get watered with. It'll either be a flush or some light feed this time of year. They won't get much. Nothing is getting much this time of year. So that just completes the cycle. We started off looking at my notes. We've gone back to look at my notes, and as I said, it's I do keep these reasonably well. So, but I'm not keeping as much data as I used to. There's another column I need to bring back, but it's going to take so long to get data into it. I used to keep a column which was when the new roots grow. And it is incredibly useful. Whereas now I'm either guessing, calculated guess, or in some cases from memory, because it's not the first time I've repotted the plant. So anyway, so that's that. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.